Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 380 of the MTGGoldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week. Kicking things off with the owner of MTGGoldfish, Richard. How are you this week, Richard?
Hey Seth, doing well. How are you doing?
I am doing wonderfully. Gonna be a fun podcast. We're gonna talk about one of my new favorite formats today and a bunch of other stuff. But before we get into that, we got another co-host in Krim. Krim, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. Also excited to be talking about a format that I've been playing a decent amount of. So, yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to start off our podcast today talking a little bit about Explorer in Pioneer. It's been out for, a little over a week now, week and a half, and we've actually gotten to check out this new format. So we got some first impressions and thoughts about the format, how it compares to Pioneer. So that's what we're starting with today, and then we got some smaller topics to maybe jump into. Ledger Shredder kind of taking off, original Shocklands increasing in price, Commander Legends spoilers going to be starting soon, new Secret Lair stuff, and then fish mail, of course. So that is the plan for today. Before we jump into it, though, a reminder that our show today is brought to you by Card Conduit. And Card Conduit, they are a great way to sell your Magic collection, and we've been telling you about them and their curated shipment service. It lets you sell your valuable cards with a reduced service fee for a while now, and as long as your cards have a retail value of $2 or more, you can send in as many as you want and still just pay a 5% service fee. And as with all of Card Conduit services, you don't got to sort your cards, you don't got to grade your cards, you get to skip over all those hassles and just safely package everything up and ship it out, and you'll even get a detailed report with the results. So you can check out Card Conduit's curated shipment option as a way to buy list cards with fast processing, optimized prices, and the low service fee of just 5%. And right now, you can even get another 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/MTGGoldfish. Card Conduit, they're the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. So thank you so much to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And let's talk some Magic, and more specifically, some Explorer. So Explorer, of course, new format on Magic Arena. It is the first step towards eventual Pioneer on Magic Arena. Right now, though, it's a little different than Pioneer. Some cards are missing. The metagame's a bit different. Krim, I know you have also been playing this format. What is your first impression of this new format on Magic Arena?
Oh, it's been pretty fun so far. I mean, minus a few issues that I've had, but I don't know. I mean, right now I'm feeling the lack of power from some of the cards not existing on Arena that are there from Pioneer, right? I think that it's a little awkward playing a black-based mid-range deck and not having Kalitas. It is really, really sad. Because I've been in need of a Kalitas so bad, Kalitas, whatever you want to call them.
You've been wanting Kalitas for a while, even before Explorer was announced. I remember you talking about that. I believe for historic and stuff. You wanted it on Arena for a long time now.
I need Kalitas, and we just don't have him, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm just kind of twiddling my thumbs, waiting for him to come, to Arena. And then, of course, because, there are some decks, as you probably had guessed, that ported over quite nicely. Didn't really skip a beat. I think Winota ports over just quite nicely. I mean, losing out on Voice is a little bit more of a bummer for, the control matchup if you're a Winota player. But other than that, I mean, I don't think you cared anyways, because Winota's so efficient. And then Mono Red is hyper aggressive, so, these decks all port over quite nicely, and they're very aggro, so that seems to be what the ladder mostly is. That, and then some variant of Grease Fang. That's all I've played against. That, and then if it's best of one, I played against a lot of Trickery. A lot of Trickery.
That's actually something I wanted to ask real quick. Have you been mostly playing best of 3 or best of 1? Because I feel like Explorer is one of those formats where there's actually a really huge difference in the metagame between the two formats.
I've been doing both. So, in best of 3, I've noticed, there's a little bit you get, mono blue spirits, right? I don't know why, but mono, actually, both in best of 1 and best of 3, I've seen a good amount of mono blue. So, I've even played against Simic Flash, your personal favorite. I won't lie to you, I got bodied by Simic Flash. But yeah, it is a lot of fun playing this format, but I do not know how some of these cards are not banned. I feel the same way about them in Pioneer. I don't know how Winota exists. Why is Winota a thing?
So my experience in Explorer, and I actually played, I mean, I've been playing a bunch on and off, and I did a video for it, but I played a lot this weekend because I put together this mono black aggro deck splashing Mob Nixilis, and the deck was actually like really, really sweet and doing really well. So I was just kind of like playing for fun and ranking up with it, and my matchups were super diverse, like kind of shockingly diverse. So I played, I think, 17 matches with the deck, playing best of 3 over the weekend. And the deck that I played against most, I got my untapped.gg stats up, was mono red. I played 4 times. And then I played like Rakdos 3 times. I played a couple of black decks, a couple of Grixis decks. I didn't play against Winota a single time. I only played against blue white control 1 time. So I don't know, this was going from, I went all the way through platinum, from platinum to diamond over the weekend. So maybe it's like the level I'm at, I don't really know, but my experience was very different than I expected, because I was expecting a ton of blue white, a ton of Winota, and those were just not a big part of my experience playing over the last couple days. So I was actually impressed with how diverse the metagame was. And again, that was best of 3. That's only a 17 match sample size. I know other people have different experiences. I know best of 1's a lot different, but I was actually kind of blown away. And in some ways, and I hate to say this, it was actually even more enjoyable than real Pioneer, because some of the decks that are missing are decks that I just really don't enjoy playing against. Like the Lotus Field combo style deck is probably the Pioneer deck that I dread playing the most. Not that it's broken, but it's just so obnoxious. And the same with Jeskai Ascendancy combo, kind of falls into the same realm almost as the Lotus Field combo. So those decks missing actually were a positive. So I've like really been enjoying Explorer, and I was a little skeptical. I'm always skeptical of these like precursor formats, these fake formats that are like, oh, we're working towards, you know, a real format. But my experience with Explorer has been, it can definitely stand on its own merits right now. I do think, though, that you're probably right about some changes being necessary. I think with stuff like Winota, that's one that was brought up, or Trickery, that's another one. Do you think those need to be banned? Just banned, or is it like a best of 1 thing? Like, is Winota still too good even in best of 3, or is this like best of 1 bannings that you're thinking of?
I mean, I think, okay, so Winota, it should be gone from like best of 1 and best of 3.
Okay.
Just because like it's such, okay, so the deck itself doesn't really ever need to deploy Winota, right? Because it can just sit there, chip away with a bunch of elves, and do nothing, because it has good enough cards. Like, it has a Seeka's Chariot, right? It has Tovolar or whatever. People
don't get that about Winota. People think of it as a combo deck, and in some sense it is. You do have these games where you Winota and you just like win, but it's a really good mid-range deck, and that's what makes the deck so scary. Is you got a Zika's Chariot, which takes 2 or 3 removal spells. Another one, Fable the Mirror Breaker, usually takes 2 removal spells. You got all the good just like Brutal Cathars and Ramp and Innkeepers and stuff. You got the Grave Titan and Tovolar Sunmaster. So it is a deck that can stand on its own without Winota. I think that's the scariest part of the deck. It's the threat of Winota coming down and winning the game makes you play around Winota and play inefficiently, and then the Winota player just beats you down with Chariots and Fable the Mirror Breakers as you're being forced to leave up mana every single turn in case there is a Winota, and then you lose anyway.
Yeah, and that is precisely the like pattern of play that I think is a little, I don't know, it's a bit much, right? I think it's a bit much. I don't miss Lotus Field. I don't miss that deck whatsoever. I think, like, I do wonder how Winota like is gonna, if they're gonna actually ban it in Pioneer and in Explorer, because yeah, like it just doesn't have to do anything. It just sits there and it just hangs out, and then, you know, then we die to whatever mid-range threat they have, and it's so annoying. But
I have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this Winota list, because you described basically Jund, but in Naya. It plays 0 interaction. How does it do anything against like unfair decks?
Well,
there aren't any except for itself.
basically because there's no Lotus Field and because there's no like Jeskai Ascendancy, there's not really combo in Explorer at this point. In Real Pioneer there is, and those are actually like some of the weakest matchups. If you look at like a Pioneer Winota deck list, their sideboard is overloaded with Thalias, Archon of Amirias, Elite Spellbinders, Deafening Silences. Like most of their sideboard is dedicated to trying to fight unfair decks. In Explorer, you don't have to do that, which I think in some ways makes the deck even better because they can use their sideboards on removal and stuff for other matchups because they don't have to worry about getting comboed off. So I think there probably is an argument for banning Winota in both places, but I would say if you had to choose just one, I think it's definitely even better in Explorer than it is in Pioneer just because of how the metagame shakes out and the metagame difference is there is no combo deck to be the natural foil to this mid-rangey combo deck. No faster combo deck than Winota to punish it for being this mid-range combo deck.
So here's $1 million question. Do you want Winota banned or do you want fast combo decks into the format?
Winota banned, leave the fast combo decks out of there.
Because that's the natural foil of like overloading on like basically the fairest of Magic, right? Just all creature beaters. You beat this by just comboing them out, right? Because, you know, like you guys said, I need like 4 removal spells for the Chariot. Got to hold up mana for Winota. Or I could just combo off and kill you and you sit there dirtling. So is combo the hero we needed?
I think it is.
I mean, I want Explorer to become Pioneer as quickly as possible. That's my goal.
Yeah.
Like, I'm enjoying Pioneer now, but what I really would enjoy is having full, or I'm enjoying Explorer now, but what I'd really enjoy is having full Pioneer on Arena. So even though right now I like not having to play against Lotus Field and Jeskai Ascendancy, I would
ban those.
definitely take those on Arena as quickly as possible, and I do think it would help with Winota, although even with those decks, I think there's a strong argument that Winota could be bannable in full Pioneer, even with those decks. Like, yes, those combo decks help, and it does give Winota a not great matchup, but even with those decks being a part of the meta, Winota is still, I think, clearly just the #1 deck in full Pioneer as well. So I think that it's at least on the fence in full Pioneer as something that could need to be banned. In Explorer, I think you just do it. Just ban it. Like, people are complaining about it. It's not a fun play pattern. It's a fake format anyway at this point, and Wizards already said there was going to be differences between Explorer and Pioneer. So I really don't know what the upside is of keeping Winota around in Explorer at this point.
For the fun, of course.
Fun.
So if you guys, if we do a banning, would you consider Explorer Pioneer Light still? Like, let's say Winota is gone. Let's say, I don't know, Trickery's gone or whatever, right? Like, is it the same format or have they diverged already like 1 month in? Or should they try to keep it and like hope for the new cards to fix it?
So on Trickery, that's just a weird Arena thing. Like, Trickery is not a deck in Pioneer. I have never once in my entire life played against a Trickery deck in Pioneer. It is purely just a Arena incentives thing, and it's a best of 1 thing. I don't think I've ever played against it in best of 3. I'm sure it has happened in best of 3, but it's not really a thing in best of 3. So I think getting rid of Trickery actually would make Explorer more like real Pioneer because it's just this weird quirk of the Arena setup. I think Winota, though, it is an iconic deck of Pioneer. And if we're like trying to make Explorer feel as much like Pioneer as possible, I think there is an argument that you just leave it unbanned until you also ban it in Pioneer. Like, I think that would be my preferred outcome is like ban Trickery because that's just a weird Arena thing and a weird best of 1 thing. In Winota, just ban it in both places maybe, and then it still parallels actual Pioneer. Explorer does.
I'd love that. I would love that. I think like once Winota and like the Hidden Strings deck are gone, like from Pioneer, I think that'll like Pioneer will thrive. And then on top of that, right now, as long as Winota exists on Explorer, the ladder is so stale. I am honestly having the most fun playing Standard right now. Like, Standard is where I'm at, right? I mean, like, Explorer is still really fun, but like, yeah, like they keep leaving Winota around, and I think and like Lotus Field, it'll eventually get to that point where they took too long to ban things in Pioneer, and people were getting kind of like down on the whole format.
Most likely outcome. Wizards does something, but they didn't think it through. I mean, other options are suspension, which they've removed, right? But you could suspend Winota and then wait for Lotus Field to come back and then unsuspend it. But that just really is a way of like not giving you wild cards. And then are nerfs and buffs on the table? Or is
No. Richard.
So what you're asking for is historic again. Right?
Oh,
like,
you
wait a
dirty
minute, what if we
historic
make a
player.
new set? We'll call it a chemist, okay? And then we'll add some cards into the Explorer format. And we'll okay. But yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to go there. That was the whole point of this. But there are ways to try to kind of fix this.
And I think a lot of it depends on time frames. Like, are we getting Pioneer and Lotus Fields and the missing pieces in the next 6 months, in the next year? Or is it going to be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? Like, if it's going to be several years, which is one of the first things Wizards said in an article, and of course I'm hoping that time frame is going to be faster, then I think you have to worry less about the formats diverging from each other at this point, just because it's such a long time frame, and that's going to happen anyway. So I think if we knew we're getting full Pioneer in 6 months, or close to full Pioneer in 6 months or a year, then I think the option of being like, all right, we're just taking Winota off the table for now, like essentially a suspension, and then once we have more cards in the fuller card pool, it's going to be coming back, then I think that's a legitimate plan. But if it's going to be like 5 years or something, then that's makes me wonder if that's the best pathway forward, if it's going to take a really long time. So it'll be interesting. Question for, I guess, both of you, but also mostly Krim. What else are we missing? You mentioned Kalidas. Now that you've been playing this format, is there anything else that, as someone who plays full Pioneer as well, just stands out as like, okay, like if they do anthologies this summer and release some new cards specifically for Explorer, this is what I want in it. These are the really important missing pieces to make this more like full Pioneer.
Oh, I mean, you got to get Spellqueller, right? I mean, Spellqueller, Mausoleum Wanderer, you got to get the spirits in there. Like, I'm missing even those cards. And yeah, like there's mostly just, I think it's like on the tempo side of things. I'd like to see a little bit more like flash threats and stuff like that. Of course, Supreme Verdict is nice. The uncounterable clause of that, as we've seen when it's attached to anything, a sweep or anything along those lines, is always good. And it is sad that we don't have that either. And most importantly, Mutavault. I think Mutavault opens up a lot for aggro decks, and it feels weird to not have Mutavault running around. I never would have thought in the year 2022 though Mutavault would still be like that good.
Yeah,
but it is.
Yeah, no, that is a really key missing piece. I think those are good ones. Spirits definitely need a bunch of pieces. Spellcaller is probably the biggest one, but also like Mausoleum Wanderer, Alpha Spirit, as you mentioned. Other ones that you didn't mention that I think I really notice being missing compared to Pioneer, Nykthos is probably one of the biggest ones for me, because you have all these like ramp decks and devotion decks that people are still trying to play and explore, but they're missing like their literal most important card, like their one devotion payoff card. So I think Nykthos would be another really big addition. Voice of Resurgence, that came up when we were talking about the Winota deck. I think if we power up Control, maybe that's a nice way to power it back down a little bit, or give creature decks another way to fight against Control, which I think could be good. So I feel like, though, that could be an anthology, right? Couldn't you print an anthology? What's an anthology? 10 cards, 15 cards? Like, they could power up, and then if we want, and we're worried about the Winota thing, like, you could throw in the Jeskai Ascendancy, or you can throw in Hidden Stirrings, or some of the pieces for those combo decks. I don't know if I actually would like that, but I feel like a 15, 20 card anthology could greatly change this format and make it much, much more like real Pioneer. Thing in the Ice is another one that I always run into in Pioneer that I don't see at all in Explorer, obviously. So I feel like Wizards could do a lot of work with one well-designed anthology that would really just jumpstart this format and get it much closer to Pioneer.
I mean, when you think about it, right? Like I think we had mentioned it lightly, or like I was talking about lightly last week. I think they could totally get the key cards, the ones that we actually use, by I don't know, December. I think we could be at Pioneer, like, cause like it's sure maybe we're missing like 3,000 some cards, right? But about a third of those are actually played.
Yeah, I mean,
so
one master set One master set would do it. And I think even like an anthology would do a lot of work. But I think if they actually did Pioneer Masters and designed it well, that would probably give us functional Pioneer. You'd still be missing, as you mentioned, a bunch of cards for like random brews and stuff. But I think if you went to the metagame page for Pioneer over on the site and just scrolled down it, I think you could literally have every deck on there that's part of the tier meta with one single master style set. Like, that's all we need. That's all we need for the short term. And then over the next couple of years, keep filling in, do remastered sets or whatever to get the rest of the cards on there eventually. But this process could happen really quickly. But what do you think, Richard? A little skeptical that we're actually going to get that?
So much hope for the future, you guys. You know, when I look at my son and I'm like, wow, the future is so bright for you. You guys are like, why? Look, Wizards will like release one stapled 9 filler cards and charge you for 10 cards, right? And they'll do it again next month and next month and next month, right? You're like, we've already established they can release all the cards for Pioneer like at the snap of a finger, but how can they charge you for that, right? You guys have suggested gameplay improvements, but how have you improved Hasbro's bottom line? Right. So,
get out of here, Hasbro! You're doing fine financially.
No way. They were gonna give you like one or two cards filled with like 8 C tier cards, and then you're gonna buy the anthologies, right? And then you're gonna wait again, right? And they're just gonna keep doing it. Like, there's a reason. Like, yeah, like one master set would finish Pioneer, but they could have done that at launch. Why didn't they do that at launch?
I feel like Richard just stands over his kid's crib and is like, just so you know, son, Santa's not real. The Easter Bunny, that's all made up. Like, dude, he's like a month old. Come on, give us some hope. Give us some hope.
Wrestling is
gotta
fake.
teach you to live in the salt. You know, you can't live on hope. Okay, like just dwell down here. Here's the stark reality of it.
I mean, really, though, I think you are right. And we probably are being overly optimistic. And we probably will get an anthology that has a Cletus or something. And then a bunch of, filler cards or whatever. So I think Richard probably is right. But the future does seem like it has potential to be right. And I'm going to keep holding out hope because the format's sweet. And it's gotten, I think, a good response. Matches are firing quickly. It's brought some people back to Arena that left because of the Alchemy debacle and Historic debacle with Alchemy. So I feel like it's heading in a good direction. It's just, how quickly do we get there? And I don't know. I guess I keep raising my hopes with stuff like this only for Wizards to dash them. But maybe this is the time that they actually come through. That's sooner or later. It's got to happen, even by accident, I think.
They accidentally give us what we want.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts about Explorer Pioneer before we hit up some other topics? I guess actually, question, Krim. I have one for you before we go, both of you. Do you feel like Explorer is ready for big time as far as like being part of organized play, qualifiers, all the stuff they do on Arena? Arena, they announced, there's still pathways to the Pro Tour and all this stuff for organized play. Do you think that Explorer is in a place where it can be a competitive format, or do we need bannings / more cards added / whatever for it to be in a place where you'd be comfortable having Explorer Pro Tour, Explorer whatever the equivalent is on Arena, qualifiers and so forth?
Yeah, we still need... It's an incomplete format. We still need a lot more. At least so I think. Like right now, it just feels like there's part of a format there, and it just doesn't feel like it's all... I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it's right yet.
So wait a little bit, you think? Get some more cards and let the metagame develop a little bit more before it becomes an actual competitive format.
Yeah, I think we need... Like, it's just right now, you can tell there's just chunks of archetypes missing, just plays, like play styles and things like that. It just feels like so many things are missing. So that's why I think we're not ready yet. We're not ready yet for big time, at least Explorer. Let it shine on like standard and all that, or modern and like limited but for right, or like actual Pioneer. But for right now, Explorer is just something that I think can just hold us over digital.
Wait, so let's say the next big Arena tournament is happening. So standard will be there for sure. For the other format, would you rather see Historic, Alchemy, or Explorer? Or I guess
Historic.
Limited.
I would rather see Historic, just because it feels like there's more things to do in Historic, right? And there's more ways, like there's more decks and more things that can combat each other. And whereas, I don't know, it just feels like Explorer is not quite there yet.
I would take Explorer personally. I think I'm just honestly done with Historic at this point. Like, I honestly don't know if I'll ever play Historic again. Although I do think that Wizards would probably do like Alchemy / Historic or something, or Standard / Alchemy, whatever. Like, I would guess that's the direction they would go. I do agree with Krim that there are things that definitely feel incomplete about Explorer, but I think I would still prefer that on the tournament scene over some of the other formats that have their own set of issues. The other thing I want to mention is I wonder how much of that feeling of incompleteness we have is because we're Pioneer players. I think if you're someone who's used to playing Pioneer and then you jump into Explorer, you're definitely going to notice that. You're going to be like, oh, this card from my deck doesn't exist here. Oh, this deck, the whole deck doesn't exist because a key card is missing. But if you're an Arena player who's played Standard or maybe Historic and now you're going to Explore, I don't know if you have that same experience. Maybe you just build Explorer Winota and you don't even really notice that Voice of Resurgence isn't there. You build Explorer Mono Red and it doesn't even cross your mind that Eidolon of the Great Revel, one of the best cards in the Pioneer build, isn't on Arena. So I wonder how much of it's just our perspectives coming from Pioneer to Explorer and how different the perspective would be if you're an Arena only player who's going from Standard or Historic to Explorer. Maybe you don't experience it the same way that we do.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely true, right? Like I'm coming from the point of view that I've played Pioneer and with the assumption that this is supposed to be somewhat Pioneer. Right? Like, so I think because of that, I have this expectation, but maybe if, like people that have never played Pioneer and mostly are playing it this digitally or this is their first crack at something Pioneer, like, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's where you can let us know because I think that I'm just not happy because I know what Pioneer could be.
Yeah. And I mean, as someone who plays Pioneer, I feel like that too, where it's like, oh, like this is cool, but it's not quite the real thing. When you drink the store brand soda and you're like, that's pretty good, but it's not, classic Coke or whatever. It kind of that same feeling to some extent. But all right. Any other thoughts on this before we hit up a couple other topics? All right. I gotta ask you guys about Ledger Shredder. Ledger Shredder is a card I don't think we put it on our top 10 list, Krim, from what I remember. Maybe it showed up on one of them, but it wasn't a card that we, had at the very top of our list. And in just the last week, it is getting a ton of hype. It went from like bulk rare to being the most expensive rare from Streets of New Japan. I think the most expensive non-land rare in Standard. People are playing it in Standard. It's got 5-0s in Pioneer. It's been streamed in Modern by various people. I don't think it has any finishes there yet. People are talking about it in Legacy and Vintage. Did we just miss on Ledger Shredder? Is this card just like the truth and we underrated it? Or what do you guys think about this card now that it's really taking off?
I see why it takes off in like older formats, right? Like we're talking like Vintage, Legacy, or whatever. I mean, I've seen it get played in some older formats. And that's just because people cast multiple spells in a turn. And getting to connive is huge. Being able to like go through your deck and loot just every time anyone casts their second spell. Like it's pretty major. It's pretty major. I think, like the fact that at first I didn't have it on the list. I think because I didn't get to play with connive. I knew connive was going to be good, but then after playing with connive, it's better than I thought it would be. And I think because of that, yeah, like the shredder is even better. Like we'd already mentioned
with Power Crept again. This is Tarmogoyf, right? It's a blue Tarmogoyf.
That's not a bad comparison, especially in older formats where it's growing every turn. Like it gets big so quick, and it's filling your graveyard. Like which is beneficial in a lot of different archetypes. This card's, it is really, really strong, and Connive has proven itself to just be. It's so powerful. Like even just looting is powerful, but then it's also growing and getting so big. So I think I missed on it. I didn't think it would be bad, but I guess kind of like Krim, I was like, oh, connive looting, that's pretty cool. But I didn't really think through just like how strong it actually is when you're repeatedly looting over and over again. So I think this card might be legit. What do you think, Richard? Like, do you think this is a card that's actually going to develop into Modern or Legacy staple?
Yeah, so last week I messaged Seth. I'm like, you have a ledger shredder? I'm like, I need one for my birds deck, and it's like $15 for some reason. And he's like, it's a legit staple. I'm like, what? But then as you guys talk about it, I think it's literally blue Tarmogoyf, right? Like you cast it on turn 2. Normally a turn 2 Tarmogoyf isn't that impressive. But then like 2 turns later, it's a 3/4, a 5/6, whatever, right? And it flies. It powers up your delve, it powers up your graveyard. Unlike Tarmogoyf, after you cast your Tasigur or whatever, like your Tarmogoyf's not a 0/1, it's still big. So I actually think it's the truth. And it's in the right colors. It's blue. It pitches the Force of Will correctly. So I think it's the truth, even though it's like so, it just looks so tame and like, you don't see it, right? But it's a loot, it's a pump, right? It's a flyer and it's a finisher, right? Like it has so many things stapled onto it. So I think we just missed it.
Yeah, it does. It does so many little things. Well, I think for more on the eternal ramifications, I'm pretty sure Joe Dyer, who does This Week in Legacy and Vintage 101, I think both of his articles this week are going to be at least touching on the impact of Ledger Shredder in Legacy and Vintage, and talking about a lot of the same stuff we are, where it's like, how did everyone miss this card? Like, this card is so good and no one was talking about it. So yeah, it looks like maybe there's going to be a bigger impact from Streets of New Capenna on older formats than we realized just because of this card. And I'm excited to try it in Modern. Like, why couldn't you play some sort of Sultai deck? What do you think about like switching Jund to Sultai, Richard, and playing this alongside Tarmogoyf? Then you get double Tarmogoyf, and this fills a graveyard for Tarmogoyf.
Wow.
Is Sultai the new Jund?
There's so many things in that Sultai deck that outclass Tarmogoyf that I'm not sure why Tarmogoyf is there. If you're playing Ledger Shredder, you can play you can play all the big delve black creatures, right? What's the point of Tarmogoyf here? Right? This doesn't get incidentally hated out by graveyard hate. It flies. I actually think, like, what's the point of Tarmogoyf? if you're gonna play this, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Although
that makes
in
sense.
Modern
Maybe
it might be a bit
replaceable.
slow. It might not pump as fast in Modern, right? Because you can't cast as many multiple spells as you can in the older format. So maybe it grows slower, so Tarmogoyf can get there faster. But it flies. Flying is important.
Yeah, it's definitely important. Well, don't sleep on Ledger Shredder. What do you think about Standard, Crib? Any potential there? I've played it a little bit. I haven't seen it a ton. Even in the Connive decks that are built around Rafine and all about playing like Torolf, the train conductor thing or whatever, like playing all these Connive cards, a lot of times those decks don't really play it. Do you think it's just too hard to cast multiple spells in a turn and everyone's like, here's my 3-drop, here's my 4-drop, here's my 5-drop, and just casting one big spell rather than multiple spells? Is that what kind of powers it down in Standard?
I do think that it's a little difficult, right? Like you're asking, I don't know, in Standard, I think the thing here is like, how often are you casting multiple spells, right? Like when I look at Standard, it's mostly kind of like clunky threats. It's like mid-range, I play Lulf. All right, that's my turn. You know what I mean? Like you're not doing much more than that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already hard enough to flip something that's night and day back, right? Like, and this is exactly why. So I tried
wonder if
it in
someone
tempo.
Would build around it. Oh, did you? Did you try it in like a Delver shell or something? I'm wondering, like, maybe if you built the deck around it, it could be good. How did it play in an actual tempo deck?
Well, the problem is I don't know how you're supposed to cut, like what you're cutting, right? So I tried in the blue-black deck with, Poppet Stitcher and all of that. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that didn't go as well as I wanted it to. Let's be honest here. I felt like oftentimes, like I had it with Delver, but I had too many creatures and my Delvers never flip. So, I don't know. I think I need to work out the list, but it just felt medium because the spells that you have in Standard aren't like how they are in older formats. So it's not like I get to just sit back on bolts and stuff like that and Thoughtseize.
Yeah. I kind of ran into the same trouble, and I didn't, in its defense, I didn't build like a tempo deck around it. I was just like, I'm just going to play this in my 2-drop slot. Maybe, it's a 1/3, it can block, maybe it triggers, and playing it fairly like that and not building around it, It was okay, but not all that exciting. Like, it would loot or connive every once in a while, but it didn't happen very consistently because of what you mentioned. Like, a lot of standard is just tapping out for like this 5-drop or this 4-drop or this 6-drop rather than people slinging multiple cheap spells each turn like you see in older formats. So maybe it just doesn't have a home in standard, although I'm still intrigued by maybe trying to see if there's a way to make a Delver shell out of it or something, at least give it a chance when it's fully powered. But certainly something to keep in mind for basically every non-standard format. I think it's developed, I think, most obviously into a staple in Pioneer in the Greasefang decks, especially the control builds, the Esper Greasefang decks. A lot of those decks are just jamming 4 of those because they got a ton of cheap spells. They're trying to fill their graveyard. So it's taken off there immediately. But yeah, definitely a good card. All right, speaking of cards, I got another little financy question for you. We used to talk about finance all the time in the podcast. We don't as much anymore, but I was looking through card prices this week and noticed something that I found kind of strange, which is the original Shocklands have been really going up in price. I think the biggest example of this is Hallowed Fountain. If you go back to Dissension, Hallowed Fountain used to be like a few months ago, $23 or something like that. It is currently close to $50. So it is basically doubled in price over the last few weeks. And the weird part about this is it's really just that version. Like, people are paying a huge premium. You can get the Ravnica Allegiance version for around $13 still, and I guess it's increased like $1 or something, $2 in that time, but it hasn't increased massively. Is this the start of players valuing the original printing of Magic cards? That's not something we've ever seen before. I know, like, in the world of books or sports cards with rookie cards or whatever, there's a really huge premium that's put on the first printing of something, the first time this card had come about or this book had come about. Or is Magic heading that direction? Like, now we get so many versions of cards and there's so many crazy promos, so many different printings. Are players just like, I don't know, checking out of all that? And like, you know what the most bling version of a card is? It is the first time they printed it. I don't care if it's non-foil. I don't care if it doesn't have any crazy art or border, but like, that is the best version of this card. What do you think of this increase in Shockland prices? Like, they're going up across the board. Is this the start of something, or is this just Shockland weirdness because they're very popular cards?
I think this is just Shockland weirdness. Although I looked at like cons, like fetches, those are also like $50-$60 now. So, but I don't know. It feels like it's just Shockland weirdness right now. Yet I don't know why.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no. Original Shocks have always been kind of pricey anyways, though. Even after all the reprints, they've kind of just always been super pricey.
Yeah, I mean, they've always had a premium compared to the cheaper versions, that's true, but the premium has grown quite a bit. The weird thing is, like, we don't really see this with fetch lands. Like, if you go to, like, Zendikar fetch lands, the first time they printed the fetch lands, those are actually cheaper, I think, than their Master Set reprints, or like roughly the same price as like the Modern Horizon reprints. So we're not seeing the same thing there. I don't know if with Shocks, I don't think they've ever been reprinted with the original art. I don't know if the art is the thing that makes them different, because like if you go to Hallowed Fountain again, the Return to Ravnica version, different art. Ravnica Allegiance version, the Secret Lair versions, all these different versions, Expeditions, they all have new art. So maybe it's like original printing with unique art that hasn't been reprinted. That's part of it. What do you think about all this, Richard?
I don't know. Like, are we at promotional overload? So then the safest bet is to buy the original, but I can still see like Wizards decides to print the most epic Secret Lair for Shocklands and people flock to that one. So I'm not sure how wise this is, right? But I don't know, like there is only one first. This is first and it will never be replaced. But do people care? Like, are you willing to pay a premium for that? Or would you rather just buy the newer, blingier Secret Lair, foil etched, neon pink, whatever, Hallowed Fountain for like half the price and be probably more blingy? So I feel this is just some weirdness, but maybe set this right. Maybe this is the start of a new thing, but I don't know. Like,
yeah, I don't know either.
This is like medium border, whatever this border is, right? Not quite old border, but this border is not made anymore either. So
Yeah, I'm not sold either way either. Like I'm not sure if this matters or doesn't matter, but it definitely someone must be buying them, because even outside of Hallowed Fountain, like pretty much across the board, the original printings of the Shocklands have just been ticking up in the last couple of weeks. So definitely curious, something to keep an eye on. But yeah, I don't know. Interesting at least. Anyway,
I got a question for you, Seth.
Okay.
Is this the safest card that we'll see play forever? Like, is there another card you can think of that we'll see play forever? I guess modern forward, I guess.
I mean, fetch lands maybe, although fetch lands, maybe you could argue there's some banning risk, or at least I don't think there's a high banning risk, but compared to a Shockland, there's probably slightly higher risk of a banning. But I think that as far as cards that you can guarantee jump 10, 20 years in the future and they're still going to be seeing play, like the Shocklands are about as good as it gets for modern legal cards. I think I can't think of anything else on that level. Like 10 years ago, maybe you'd say Tarmogoyf or something, but we were just talking about Tarmogoyf is like not a thing. Tarmogoyf. Yeah, like yeah, I don't know. Can you guys think of anything else that would be on that level? Is like it's guaranteed to still be seeing play 10 years from now?
I can see this being power craft. That's the thing I'm scared of, right? Like I can see this card being power craft.
Like one life or something, or
oh god,
or yeah, some even less of a drawback than 2 life to have it come into play untapped. I mean, I guess that is a possibility. Like Triumphs have a ridiculous amount of text on them. I know they come into play tap, but Wizards is willing to put a lot of text on land, so maybe we could see something that was even more power craft. Or I guess a big one would be the legendary dual lands that people have talked about or asked for forever for Commander as a way to get around the reserve list. Maybe that would power creep them. So I guess it's not impossible.
Because you would still need to play your shocks if you have legendary lands.
I mean, these have been around for what? Ravnica was 2005, 2006. So we're going on 15, almost 20 years now.
Oh my God, you're
and
right.
they haven't been replaced yet. So
but
maybe
if Wizards quarterlies are down and there's one card they can print that can guarantee be sold across every single format, it would be some kind of like land that like adds multiple mana, or like a new fetch. Like you could power creep fetches, but like guaranteed, like everyone across the board, all formats would buy it that is legal in. So I don't know. I think it will happen eventually.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, I guess that is true. Land sell sets, and making a better shock land, that's going to sell a lot of product if that's Wizards' goal. So yeah, maybe you're right that we will see it eventually. Although at this point, they seem happy to just keep cashing in on the Shocklands. We know they have like the Infinity Outer Space Shocklands coming up this year. So
those are sweet.
Maybe they're not in a big hurry to displace them because they're still being able to profit off of the current versions. But eventually, yeah, I mean, a better shock is not impossible. All right.
That's going to be so sweet if they...
I got another one for you. We got some new Secret Lair news. We have new packaging for Secret Lair drops. I don't know if you've seen this. I'm curious what you think. So Secret Lair has gotten some criticism for being pretty wasteful, being shipped in some massive boxes on occasion, even though you're only getting like 5 cards. I think the Fetchland one was like a classic example of just this massive box, and you open it up and there's like a couple pieces of cardboard in there. But they got these like slim, almost envelope looking packaging now. What do you think of this new packaging?
I mean, they should have done this a long time ago, right? From what I remember, right, like I think, so like at the first Secret Lair, it was just like a lot, and I mean a lot of unnecessary, like just stuff. Like there would just be plastic everywhere, boxes everywhere, wrapping for this box, and all of it just was not needed. However, now it finally feels like, okay, this is like this is how they probably should have packed it to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I always have a look at an Apple product. I don't understand. Have you seen like Apple packaging? It's like the hardiest, like biggest waste of space ever. And it's like very impressive, but it works, right? Like Apple sells so much stuff. And that's the thing Wizards was going for, I guess. Same with like Pokemon cards. It's like half of a Walmart aisle for like one card.
Yeah.
But, you know, this is the Amazon minimum packaging, you know, because when I get my packaging, it fills up half my recycle. And I'm like, wow, where did I put my real recycling this week? So I like this, right? But I wonder how like just regular people deal with this. Like if you are, you know, a 10-year-old kid and you get this as a birthday present, like, is this cool or would you rather have the big box, right? And I would hope this is cool because I'd rather save the environment, but there's a reason why we have this weird retail packaging. Hopefully this is like one step further of getting that gone. And hopefully the cards don't come damaged. Remember the last time they did this with Modern Masters and the boxes? Yeah. Right? So hopefully this is actually good and like your card doesn't come bent in half as it went through the mailer or your corners are frayed or whatever, right? So crossing that this is good, but this helps the environment and, you know, it just helps with the hassle of dealing with the recycling and all of that. So I like it.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Modern Masters 2015, I want to say 2017, they had those like cardboard packaging that had all kinds of issues. And I applaud Wizards for trying it and trying to do the best thing for the environment. But boy, those cardboard packages didn't work out. People could open them and take cards out and reseal them, and they were damaging cards. These though, I like these, especially for Secret Lair. I know if you go to Walmart or Target or whatever, there's massive packaging. You'll have like a single booster pack in a box the size of like a hardcover book, like just massive. I think maybe for retail, that's just what you got to do, even though it kind of sucks. But you're trying to like catch people's eyes. They're walking through the checkout line. And one of the ways you do that, I guess, is make your packaging really big. So it's still not great for the environment, but I can see why with something like that, they have the bigger packaging. Secret Lair, though, you're ordering them online. You don't got to catch anyone's eye. Like what's catching people's eye is the website or Wizards tweeting about it or is showing up on, you know, a video or whatever. That's what's getting people. I don't think people care about their Secret Lair packaging. So I see this as pretty much full upside for Secret Lairs in specific, because you're not trying to get anyone to notice your product in the checkout line or whatever. So I hope this works out well, because I would much prefer to this nice, slim, easy to recycle packaging compared to, you know, some big hulking, bulky thing. So seems like they should have
done this a long time ago.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Speaking of Secret Lair drops, we got a little drama this week with a new Secret Lair drop, Pride Across the Multiverse. Did you guys see the Secret Lair drop first off?
I did, yes.
The Secret Lair is pretty sweet. The Secret Lair drop is pretty awesome. We talked about it a little bit last week. Wizards is donating 50% of it to Trevor Project, which is awesome, like a really great organization. However, there's a bit of drama with the release of this. So it turned out that when Wizards announced the Secret Lair drop, it was blocked in quite a few countries. So it was available here in North America, but there are reports from Mexico, most South American countries, China, Russia, of course, some other Eastern European countries, I believe, that they just literally could not see the website. And people got pretty upset about that, because normally they would be getting the Secret Lair announcement, but for some reason with this Secret Lair drop in specific, Wizards blocked them from being able to actually access it or see it in their location. What do y'all think about that? What do you think about this Secret Lair drop, which is supposed to be supporting a good cause, not being available where all the rest of the Secret Lair drops are? Does that take away from the good Wizards is theoretically trying to do?
Is this like, has this happened on other drops from them?
I don't believe so. So there have been restrictions. I think some places just can't get Secret Lair drops, period. So that's been a thing that's happened in the past. Like, we never get any Secret Lair drops. Wizards won't ship to us. What made this one weird is a lot of places that normally get all the Secret Lair drops, for, if I'm understanding it right, for the first time ever, just specifically can't get or even see this Secret Lair drop. Like, this was the exception to the rule for some reason.
But this happens on Arena too, right? They didn't put some of the sleeves on Arena?
Only about half the... Well, I don't know if they ever announced all the cards were getting sleeves, but yes, only some of the card art is going to be made into sleeves on Arena.
So I think people give Wizards way too much flack for this, right? So Wizards is complying to local compliance and regulations, right? Like, they're donating 50% of their proceeds from the Secret Lair to charity. You know what their stance is on, the issue, right? The problem is, Wizards can't save the world's issues, right? They can't like fix the world overnight. And, the choice is, either you ban all of Magic from a country, right? Or you just like don't, sell this, right? And, comply with local regulation or whatever, right? Because like, they want to, but they can't. So yes, it's unfortunate, but I don't know why Wizards has to take the blame, right? Like, that's just how the world currently works. And the pressure should be on the countries to change, right? But like, Wizards is not a nonprofit. They have to make money and they have a business, right? They can't devote all of their resources to fixing these, social causes. So yes, can they do more? Yes, but they're a for-profit company, but they are still doing something, right? They are still progressing the cause and donating money and stuff like that. So I think Wizards gets too much flack for it. And this is not the only time, right? We see it for video games all the time where certain stuff gets censored or certain stuff is banned in certain countries because those countries have different beliefs. And I don't know, like people always get outraged and they should be, but it's not totally the company's fault. Like, what can they do about it, right? So it's either that or like you don't get Magic in these countries, period, or Wizards gets like sued out of oblivion or something. Like, I'm not sure what Wizards can do in this case.
Yeah, I think the tricky part with this one is I think there are some places where it's just like that, like Wizards because of laws, probably couldn't advertise it in I don't want to misname a country, I'm not an expert. Russia, let's say Russia, hopefully I'm not wrong about that one, but there are certain countries where they just legally couldn't do it. The part that made this weird though was there's a lot of people that were like, our laws are better than the US's laws. And for some reason, this is blocked for me, it seems like maybe Wizards just was super conservative with this basically and tried to stay very far away from anything that could have legal ramifications, even if they went too far that direction. Because I know that came up with a lot of people that I follow from South America. They were like, our laws are better than your laws about a lot of these issues. I don't know why Wizards is keeping me in specific. Like, our country is like very progressive about all these issues. I don't know why they're keeping me from being able to see the Secret Lair drop. So I think that was the part that came across as a little weird. So in some cases, I do think like Wizards maybe didn't deserve the flag. I don't know how you can expect Wizards to change a country's laws, and hopefully the laws do change, but I just don't know how Wizards could do that. But then they also seem like maybe they went too far that direction with this one, and there were places where they could be selling this, but still decided not to for some reason, which that's the part that I think maybe they deserve a little bit of flack for, but I don't know. What do you think about this, Grim?
Yeah, this is kind of like one of those ones where I'm not sure how like the laws and the contracts work and stuff like that. Like, cause, there's like just booster packs in general. Like, some places don't like them because it's like, kind of like considered gambling and, loot boxes and all of that. So I don't know. Obviously it sucks. I think it sucks because it was such a, like, this is something that you want all around, right? Like, especially when it's for a good cause, like you want to have it everywhere and locate it everywhere. And it just sucks that you can't. Or that they didn't put it out everywhere.
Well, one more topic, real quick. Oh, go ahead, Richard. You got something else?
I was gonna say, like, should be careful of the pushback to it. I don't want to like be like Wizards defending, right? But like Wizards, so the way the Wizards works, right, is like, I'm gonna make money, and if I can help a cause I believe in while making money, let's do it, right? I would not expect them to be like, I'm gonna work on a cause at a loss. Like, I don't think that's like what Wizards will do. But like, if there's so much pushback for things they can't control, next year, when this opportunity comes around, they may just be like, wow, last time we did this and had a huge PR disaster in our face. Why don't we just do nothing this year? Right? So like, that's kind of the scary part. So, I hope people focus their energy into the right parts and provide constructive criticism and like ways to help rather than just like blow it out of proportion, because it's very easy for Wizards to say, this doesn't help, right? Like, it's creating negative PR, we're losing money, and like people don't appreciate the effort we're making. Why make it? And then that like ends up as net negative. So that's what I'm worried about. That I hope they still continue to do this and they work on this and like they can make it better for everyone next year, and they just don't kind of give up and say, what's the point?
I mean, that's actually a really good point, because when it comes down to it, 50% of the sales are going to a really deserving and helpful organization. And even if things didn't go perfectly, it would be a bummer if the reaction from the community to discourage Wizards from doing that. Because you're right, the other option is we release the Secret Lair drop and just put all the money in our pocket, and then none of the money goes to Trevor Project. So I think it is definitely a interesting balancing act. And I do applaud Wizards for trying to do something, even though maybe it didn't go absolutely perfectly, all the way around the world, but at least they did try to do something, I guess. But
an effort was made. Was made.
They can't even fix alchemy. We expect them to fix
that's
geopolitical issues. Like I don't know, right? Like we gotta give them some slack here.
All right, one last quick one before fish mail. So Commander Legends. Spoilers start tomorrow, and then officially next week for full spoiler season. Is it too soon? Is it too soon after SNC? I know I've been feeling, and maybe it's because I'm a content producer and I've just done spoiler season, and I feel like in just the last week I've started to build SNC decks and build Streets of New Capenna stuff, and I kind of have a bunch more stuff I want to get to, and now I'm like, oh no, there's another set. I'm right back in spoiler season. Like that's where we're at now. Do you think it was too soon, or is Commander Legends just targeting a completely different audience than Streets of New Capenna, and it's fine. It's for different groups of people.
I think that's the goal. It's like, so we have the competitive half, like that's what, all the things that can go on in standard, right? I think that's the goal here. But it's I think the Commander's Legends thing is going to be for a different demographic, right? Like, although I do wonder how much crossover there is nowadays, right? Like between, between Standard and Commander.
I was going to say that too. Like a few years ago, the argument of like, oh, Standard sets are for Standard and Commander Legends is for Commander. I think that rung much more true, but now like every Premier set has so much Commander stuff in it that it kind of feels like every product is at least for Commander players. So I can see there being a little bit of a Commander overload, like all the buyouts and price spikes and everyone's building their guided decks and like, Ginny Fang and doing all these cool things with Streets of New Capenna, and like they maybe haven't even gotten their cards they ordered yet, like by the time they get shipped to them, and it's already on to the next sweet Commander to build around. So it is a really fast hype season. But what were you gonna say, Richard?
Like, you guys are right in theory, right? But we just had 5 Commander decks released, right? Like we just had 5 Commander decks released, and like Kriv said, 75% of the cards in the standard set are made for Commander now. So this is way overload. Like as content creators, we make and play multiple decks a week, and we're behind. Like we're not caught up. I'm not even done playing like Neon Dynasty, and here we are like CLB, right? So I think it's way too much, and I think Wizards will see it in their sales. I think this set will cannibalize into SNC or the other way around. I think they'll get like less sales because like people are still building their Giada deck. They're still buying Angels. Who has time for pre-orders of CLB, right? Like, how much money do we have to spend, right? Like you can only play and if you play like once a week or once every couple of weeks, like you're backlogged months on product, right? So I don't know how you can play all these Magic cards.
I mean, our first Commander Clash for Streets of New Capenna isn't even live yet. By the time we recorded the first possible day after stuff got released, the first possible Thursday when we record, and it doesn't go up to Friday. By the time our first Streets of New Capenna episode comes up, we would already have gotten early spoilers from Commander Legends 2, and we're going to be like 2 days away from the start of full spoiler season. And we want to do like 3 games of like new stuff from Streets of New Capenna. By the time we finish those, we're literally going to have another set that's out. Like that is just it's so hard to keep up these days. So I don't know, I guess you just gotta tune some stuff out. And like, remember when Wizards always used to say this product isn't for you and everyone would make fun of them? Like in some sense, I think players got to say that to themselves, because there's just no way you can keep up on everything like you used to be able to. Like 10 years ago, you could keep up on every single product. I do this for a living, and I can barely remember the name of, the cards that came up in the last Commander Precon. Someone will bring up a card on stream and be like, "Oh, what do you think of this card?" I'm like, "Hang on, I'm gonna have to look that one up." There's so many cards, like I don't even know that's a thing. So yeah, but well, hype season, it never ends. Anyway, Richard.
I mean,
go ahead.
aren't we actually after this? We're kind of in a lull point though, right? We don't have anything till September for Standard, at least.
So of Double Masters this summer, but I believe there will be no standard sets until September. Yeah, when we get our return to Dominaria. So there will be a lull for standard, and I think a lull for products with new cards. I think it's just the Double Masters, which should be all reprint set over the summer, as far as I know.
That's my Wizards pacing. Just release it all at once and then do nothing half the year.
Anyway, Richard, I think it's time. Why don't you fish mail us?
All right. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. Nua Breton. Idea for fixing best of one without a separate ban list. Before the match, both players see 7 random cards of the opponent's deck, make sideboard adjustments, then play. Thoughts?
That sounds like a lot of work.
Wait, hold on. So you
see 7 cards. So theoretically, you can tell the archetype of what they're playing, but you don't get to see like all their tech or all the sauce or whatever, right? But you can sideboard before the first game.
Yeah, essentially you'd see 7 cards, you'd see your opponent's mono red stuff, and then bring in your life gain or whatever from your sideboard out of your control deck. Or if you see a Teferi, then you bring in the negates that you had in your sideboard and you have them for game 1. I mean, I think the idea is cool, but it seems just so clunky in practice. Like, I think the reason, whenever I ask people about best of one, by far the biggest reason people give for playing best of one is it's quick. And I don't have the time to play longer best of 3 games. So I think that this would slow down best of one to some extent, even if it's a couple minutes a game for people to have time to sideboard. And I don't think that's what people want on a best of one. I think the biggest appeal of best of one is you can play games of Magic really, really quick. So even though I think it's a cool idea, I think it goes against what best of one does best.
What about
it
picks
is
and
it
bans?
is interesting.
Like, what if you choose like 3 cards to ban, and if your opponent has them in their deck, they're just removed, and then you play.
I think that would be cooler if we were doing something like a tournament where you would bring 3 decks, and I know of these 3 decks, right? Like, and now it's up to me to like figure out like, okay, well, I present to you 3 deck lists and like Hearthstone, right? And then I think that's an interesting way to go about it, but I don't know about this. This one does seem like a lot of work.
I feel like that plan would just wreck some decks. Like, could you imagine you play against like, is it Phoenix? And you're like, Thing in the Ice, Arclight Phoenix, Stormwing Entity, and you're left with just a bunch of like.
You gotta diversify. You can't play forums.
You would definitely, you'd have to build different decks to get around it. That would be a cool it would be a cool tournament. I would love to watch a tournament for that, but I don't know if I would like it as my everyday Magic or not. Probably not.
Caboose 238. Alchemy hasn't taken it far enough. Isn't it weird or fun or compelling enough? I want Yogg Saron like effects or Scramble verse. Am I alone? Wait, what's Yogg Saron? Is that the one?
So Yogg Saron is a Hearthstone card where
that card's so sweet.
It is sweet. It is very sweet. Every like spell you cast has random targets, and it generates a bunch of random spells equal to like how many spells you've cast this game.
It's like a huge finisher. Actually, when I played Hearthstone a little bit, I played Yogg Saron just because I thought it was so much fun. But ETBs, and you cast a random spell with random targets for each spell you've cast for the game. So normally it's just this huge, you never know what happens. It could be good for you, it could be bad for you, but it's just like 2 minutes of animations and things dying and triggers going off, and it's wild. It like looks, it's probably the perfect stream deck because it just looks so cool. I don't think it's actually like good for competitive play, but I guess for a format like Alchemy, I would like to see more effects like that. Like, it's already digital only. It's already not quote unquote real Magic that they're playing in a Pro Tour or whatever. So why not embrace it? Go all the way. I don't know about Yogg Saron in specific. I think Hearthstone players ended up hating that card. So I think
I loved Yogg. Yogg was great. I mean, I've also died to my own Yogg numerous times, so it's pretty damn funny, actually.
That's part of the fun. You never know. But yeah, I would like to see Wizards
Really
go
do.
even further. I do agree that a lot of the alchemy stuff we've seen so far has been tamer than I expected. When I heard they were doing alchemy, I expected Yogg-Saron's type stuff, and just like over the top craziness. And so far, it's been like, I guess kind of that mechanic wouldn't work in paper, but it's pretty close. So I don't know if they're gonna do it. Go all the way.
The technology's not there, Seth.
Actually, you're joking, but I think that's actually probably true. I don't even know if that's a joke. They might actually not have the the technology for it.
But I agree. I think they should go. So they tried to make the cards like kind of mimic paper, but then no one liked it and it like backfired. So they might as well just go all out and like go full digital only and go crazy with the effects. But like if I were to play like one game a day, I want my game to end in a Yogg-Saron. So I mean, it sounds good, right? So hopefully they just go, they're like, okay, we give up on trying to appease standard players. We'll just go nuts and try to get the Hearthstone players with these type of cards. So I like that idea. All right, that's all the time we have for Fishmail this week. Thank you to everyone who sent in questions. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And I believe that brings us to the end of episode 380 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So Richard Crimp, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And we'll be back next week to talk about Commander Legends 2 spoilers and whatever else goes on in the world of Magic. So until then, have a spectacular week, everyone. And this is a crew signing out.